Hey everyone, welcome back to the show as we're talking about part 2 of leading like a soldier to dominate in life. And really what this is to continue on of the last episode, so make sure that you go back, listen to that one to get context, as well. I will be continuing on with the next 5 points on how to lead and win. And one of the first topics I want to dive into today is about counseling. Something in the military that we do is called counseling, all right? And this could be for good or bad things. And really it's to help your team set goals, personally, professionally, all right? But I also want to give you an example of something that I see this happen all too often, whether this is in your professional life or in your personal life. And it's something where, it's using the only time that people ever get any type of feedback or coaching is when something bad happens. And, let me give you an example of something for myself. And this was ties back to some of the other leadership principles we'll also get into as well. But for the final few years when I was in the Army National Guard as an instructor, for the last 3 years I was an instructor for this military police transition course. And so what this was is that anybody that was wanting to change their military job, called an MOS, that they would transition, they'd have to go through this course if they wanted to become an MP or military police. And I remember having the leader that was there that in some ways I thought this guy was an idiot. And, but hey, whatever. That's sometimes you can't choose your leaders, right? You have to make the best of it. And that as a staff sergeant at E06, which, that's about mid-level for ranking, it's getting into a leader positions. But going into this instructor course, I was now one of the lowest ranking people there, as a lot of the instructors and cadre in the course were higher level NCOs and officers. And so with that, I remember there was one of these tasks that needed to get done, and it was to go inventory of conics. And this was in the middle of the summer. I think it was like 110 degrees outside. And so I remember going out and doing this and spending literally like 7 hours going through the conics for our course to inventory every single item that we had in there, and got the count, spent the entire day doing it. And then I came back, and apparently the counts that I came up with did not match with what the unit had on paper. And I remember that my immediate leader at that time then came in and wrote me up a negative counseling statement with it. Now, mind you, at this time, I've already owned several businesses, and I think I've kind of just was questioning, why am I still doing the whole reserve thing? There's that part of that, like, I've got this much time in, do I really want to give it up? But I also just saw that this guy that was my boss was a complete moron. And, I just thought, like, this was one of those things that, like, dude, are you absolutely kidding me? We actually got into a huge argument over it, and I called him out on a lot of different things. And I'm telling you this because, you know what, that was one of those, honestly, final straws for me where I thought, like, this is ridiculous. I need to move on with life and be done. And it was something of simple of basically what it is, getting counseled and having it. Basically, it's getting a documented write-up that the numbers that I counted in this conics was not what was on paper for the unit, which was the whole point, is to find out, but somehow I got in trouble for it. So, well, that's a whole other thing. I'm just saying the whole point that I want to give you of this is, first, don't do that. Because just as the reaction that I had, and again, a lot of these things that I'm giving you, if you're having problems leading your team, I'm going to tell you to start looking inwardly at yourself and what are the things that you're doing, because just remembering that mindset that people join companies and organizations, they leave leaders. And I would say with this, but coming back to counseling, all right, that you have to look at it with your team, with your family, with your friends, or whatever that is, even, like I said, even your spouse. When it comes time to give any type of counseling or feedback, are you only going in when it's a bad situation? Or are you looking at it of being, it's double-sided? Are you giving encouragement along with when that feedback happens? Because, so think about it like this, is the counseling is coming back to this, is really being able to help your team set goals personally and professionally. And so some of the specific things, and again, I hit on this a little bit in the first episode, But what are the areas that you can really help them map out, where it is that they're wanting to win? One of those things is looking at their career goals. If they're wanting to promote, if they're wanting to move ahead, what specific action items do you want to see them do to set themselves apart? Some of the things that I will tell my team is, I want you to start making yourself stand out amongst your peers. All right, so if this is your job right now, and this is the expectation, first and foremost, you need to master every detail of your position. But then beyond that, I want to see you start taking on some additional duties and doing things that these are not paid. These are stretch assignments that you are going to step up. You're going to go above and beyond the minimum, and that you're going to set yourself apart from your peers as a leader. That would be one example. Some of the other things within the workplace is, even if there's opportunities for them to go into this leadership role or start doing stuff, how do you have them as a peer mentor? Giving you another example for some of our leaders, that as we start putting them into more of like a district manager role, and from where they're managing and leading an individual location, for those that have stepped up, one of the things that we start looking at is, okay, we're going to have you start stepping up and doing this, but then how are you coaching and mentoring your peers and taking your skill sets, your success, and being able to help them with what they're doing? All right, and so everything just remembering, all right, but this comes back to that first point, is being able to help them have guidance, things they need to do, expectations of what's going to help them get promoted and get ahead, all right? Some of the other stuff is counseling. It's also looking at some of their goals outside of the workplace. Does your team, maybe they're going to college, maybe they're trying to get a degree, or, maybe there are some financial goals. Maybe they are trying to buy a house. Are they, what about for their fitness? Are they doing something like, is there a struggle with their fitness, or maybe not as a struggle, or maybe it's just they're wanting to take it to the next level? Are you being able to help them map out goals, and in some ways help them map out an action plan with that? Financial stuff, right? How much do they need to save to buy a house? Okay, and I'm giving you an example of some of the stuff I've helped my team with. Is, all right, so if you need to come up with a down payment of this, how much are you able to save every month? Okay, how do you go set up a high yield savings account that you treat this like a bill and that you're saving a certain amount of money every single month? Okay, what about your fitness? Now, for those of you maybe are not in the fitness industry, all right, well, if they have fitness goals, all right, maybe it's running a marathon. Okay, what are you going to commit to for running? Or whatever that training schedule is to get ready for this. And sometimes it's just documenting this and having this and knowing that you're going to check in a month to see how they're doing, and it's having that level of accountability, right? And then giving them that praise and recognition when things come up. All right, here's the other big thing with this is that I also see it as on the negative side is the feedback, all right? And there was a saying, again, this came from John Maxwell, that his saying was, be a velvet covered brick, meaning there is a time to be soft and there's a time to be hard. All right, what I just hit on are some of the times of you're being soft, you're being encouraging, or maybe there's a death in the family. Maybe they're going through a health issue. Maybe there's, they went through a breakup or divorce or something like that. Are you being caring, nurturing, and empathetic, or are you the guy that says, suck it up, you need to be at work on Monday? I tell you, if you have that mindset, you're going to push people out. You need to understand that there is a time to be soft. And how do you create extreme loyalty with your people is when they're going through these difficult times, how can you go through and help with that? There's been multiple times with our team, even certain things have been able to cover, maybe sometimes there was some unexpected medical expenses, or there was some stuff that happened of just truly bad stuff. And we've covered, different things of, I think one time it was like there was some roof leak or the insurance wasn't going to cover it for one of our team. And they're going to have to come out of pocket like for, a bunch of extra cash they didn't have. And, this was just something because this was one of our leaders and someone that we wanted to take care of. We went above and beyond what it was an expectation or anything as an employer to be able to help this person. All right. And I think that you have to have that mindset, not just with your team, but sometimes, with just life in general, right? Is learning that there's a time to be soft and empathetic and caring and nurturing, right? Now, on the other side, this, you look at this analogy of this velvet-covered brick, there's a time that you have to be hard, all right? And that comes back to the performance side, because if you're giving regular counseling and focusing on good, but I also layer in there, all right, where are these areas of opportunities, and giving regular feedback of being able to look at it, that we really try to create a culture of feedback of just knowing that we all have blind spots, that we all have areas that we may be weak in that we're not aware of, and that, leaders, we have a job and responsibility to be able to coach and develop our teams and being able to give them that feedback to help them be better. And I think about this just like with a lot of what I do with our clients is, especially in a hard workout, all right? It's thinking about it like this. Okay, somebody's doing an overhead press and they're not getting full extension. All right, well, I'm going to come over. I'm going to tell them, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to lock your elbows out. All right, come back a little bit more. Maybe I do a slight hands-on to help them get into the position and tell them, all right, do you feel the difference? Do you see the difference with that? Okay, perfect. So it's the same thing in life, right? If somebody in your workplace or on your team, if they're not doing something the right way, you have to look at it as, you're not being a jerk and you're not being mean. You're helping them be better. All right, because now if they take it the wrong way, that's a whole other issue. But, you have to look at this and how are you creating this culture within your team that, we all should be able to give each other feedback and have open, honest conversations because we're all human and we all make mistakes. And most of the time, most of us are not doing it just to be a jerk. It's typically just, hey, I have no idea that this is what I was doing that caused that issue. So, but on the other side of this too, all right, is being able to give that open, honest feedback. But what happens when you do and nothing changes? Well, this is where you have to start going down, like I said, that hard side of the brick. And it's this performance management side. And, really the philosophy that we have is I very much believe in I'm going to give verbal coaching. I'm going to, if there's an issue, we're going to talk about it. And if it still doesn't get better, then at that point, then we start coming up with a written plan. All right, it's a write-up. Making sure they understand, all right, here's the next steps. This is what we need to do. I'm going to give them very clear expectations of what this looks like. I'm going to ask them, all right, what part of this are you not clear on? Is there anything you don't know on how to do? How can I help you and make sure that you clearly understand the expectations of this? All right, and if it continues to be an issue, then it's going on to a performance improvement plan. And really what this is a final step before we're letting someone go. And it's very clearly, again, taking that prior write-up, and it's putting this into an actual 30-day plan with daily, weekly expectations of what that's going to look like. So again, this is very black and white, that either they are hitting the standards, which is going to help them be better, or making it very clear that they are no longer going to be part of our team. And I think that this one part, and I see that this holds so many leaders back, because they are afraid of confrontation. They don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or they like this person personally, but they're not showing up in their job. And I want you to think about it like this. Like, if you have somebody on your team that's not pulling their weight, and you as the leader are not doing anything about it, what's going to start happening is that then other people on the team are going to feel like that you are not, you're not going to do anything about it. And because the other people feel like this isn't right, it isn't fair, once again, they're going to start looking for something else. And it always comes back to this. People join companies, they leave leaders. So as leaders, if you are not managing poor performance, if you're not giving regular coaching and feedback, you're going to be failing the rest of your team to keep a poor performer on your team. And so I think one last analogy to think about, and this was actually someone from a good friend and mentor of mine, Bedros Keuilian, he told me this, and it really just stuck, is that you can build a ladder for people, that you can show them the road to, basically, you can give them the instructions to build the ladder, and you can give them the road and the path to success. But if they end up building themselves a noose, or they start building themselves a noose, you can keep saying, hey, I want you to come over here. No, you're building yourself a noose. Come back over here. I want you to build a ladder. This is how you build the ladder to go to new levels and new heights. And then they keep insisting on building a noose. At some point, you have to let them hang themselves. And as a leader, when I get to that final point, when it's time to let someone go, you have to also get to that point that, have I done everything that I can to help this person? Have I clearly laid out expectations? Have I clearly laid out where they're missing the mark and giving them an action plan on how to improve? And for me, what I try to coach our leaders on is when you have gotten to that point and you've done everything you can and this person still is not changing, then you should have no qualms on it's time to part ways and give them other opportunities to find something else that's not on your team. All right, so with that, that goes into our next point. So this is point number 7 out of our 10 points between the last episode and this one. And so really what this is succession planning. All right, is grooming your team for the next level, next position, and that you are always having someone that is ready to go and get promoted. And that, I think of this as leaders, and I see this unfortunately with a lot of leaders, and this is again a military mindset shift that I want you to have. In the military, as a leader, it was an expectation that I am training my soldiers to be able to take my job. That they need to be able to do my job. If something ever happened to me, if it was in a combat situation and the leader was taken out, that there's going to be 3 other people that are equipped and trained that are ready to step into their position. And so that way it is a flawless operation. But so often, there's insecure leaders that see it as they hold back some of their skills. They hold back some of their knowledge because they're afraid that someone else on their team is going to somehow replace their job, which, you have to think about this. Unless you're a poor performer yourself, that is your entire job, is that you're continually moving up or to other things, but who are you equipping and preparing so that way when you step out as a leader, they can immediately step into your role and they're going to be able to take it to the next level. All right. And so if you are not actively coaching your team and how to get promoted, you know what? You're missing the mark as a leader. And I think that this is something that you absolutely have to look at. And so just some of the items, and just as we do it as a company within our 8 locations, is it's very much that there is a structure to what this looks like. One of the first things that we have, a lot of our staff actually had started off as clients. And really that we have a progression that, again, as we look at people that are aligned to our values, that again, we always come back, we want to find people that have our values, and it's not necessarily about the skill set. And so that's why we created an internship program. So for those clients that have come in, they've seen incredible results at our Fit Body Bootcamp locations. And that we take them through an internship where they get their personal training certification. We teach them the way that we want to do things. And after they successfully complete and they graduate from the internship, then they become a part-time coach. And for those that are wanting to do more, then there's opportunities to start going full-time. And for those that are then rock stars and awesome, continue to grow, of moving into a leadership position. It's running, whether it's one of our lead trainers or it's running a facility as a studio director. And really from there, it's in moving for those that are running an amazing facility. So how do they start going into leader of leader roles, district managers, regional manager type roles? And there's always a stepwise succession. And really for us as a company and how we are always planning is who is ready if something happens to a certain person, who is on our bench right now that's ready to go? Who are our high performers? Who are the ones that we need to be coaching and developing and giving them stretch assignments to help take them to the next level? All right. And so I think some of the other things too, as you just get into this, is part of the development is really you need to, I think, encourage your team too. I think that a lot of leaders miss the mark on this. Again, coming back to counseling, it's just focusing on the negative stuff, but what are you doing to then taking those that are performing at a high level? Because remember this, a rising tide raises all ships, meaning that if you are raising the bar for everyone on your team, you're going to continue to raise the level of performance and what excellence looks like. And so poor performers are not going to be able to hang. Either their levels are going to raise or they're going to be on their way out, because you've created a team, just like within the military, that there's certain standards that if you're a soldier, this is the code that we live by. That are you creating that same type of environment on your team? So a few different ways that you can do this. One of the simple things is when somebody gets something done, a simple thank you. Hey, I appreciate you doing that. Even though it's part of their job, hey, thank you, good job. Appreciate you getting that done. It's just a simple acknowledgement. All right, and then you take that to the next level. When somebody has done something that has really got above and beyond, they've achieved a certain result, at our team meetings, we always make it a point to do our core value acknowledgments. All right, so we give at the beginning of a team meeting, we give a shout out, who has lived our core values this week and what specifically have they done. And we always go around and make it part of our culture that we're going to recognize our team and we're going to recognize whatever the stuff that they did this past week to make sure that they, it's being recognized. And then here's the other thing is then it gives them an opportunity to talk about the results, how that had an impact within their business and their clients. And then the other leaders and other people in the room are hearing that and be like, you know what, that's a good idea. I should do that too. All right. So again, remember with that, a rising tide raises all ships. Okay. And so that goes to really the third thing with this is taking this one step further is, I like to find people when they have really done something that's been awesome, that's had a great result within their team, their location, is it's having them teach this to the rest of the team, actually putting together a presentation. And then it's even for them, if they're looking to promote, is giving them an additional duty or stretch assignment to prove themselves. And again, this then goes into if they are looking to get promoted, how are they separating themselves amongst their peers? And so this is something else just to look at as you are looking to develop, coach, in your succession planning of a stepwise fashion of how you can get this done. Okay, now going into the next thing in business and life is having an aggressive battle stance. And so what this means is really in the military, and especially when I was deployed, that this was something of having that you're trying to find problems before they find you, that you're being proactive instead of reactive. And I'll give you an example of what this looks like. Remember one night that we were rolling out on a mission and we went through this particular checkpoint and we started taking fire, and it was a notorious hot spot. It was on, MSR Tampa at checkpoint 595 Alpha, all right, that we always seem to get hit with something when we're rolling through this particular checkpoint. And so one night we started taking fire from this palm tree grove, and there was multiple positions in there. And so, as we returned fire and continued on our way. But on the way back, because we knew that this was only like maybe a couple hours later, what we had done was something what's called the recon of fire. And so the whole point of this is where that you fire into where you think the enemy is to make them think that you see them. And so that way, when they fire back, you can see where they're at and then you can take them out. And so this is what we did. We, started putting some rounds into this palm grove. Nothing happened. No one was there. But still, it's that mindset of, do you take an aggressive battle stance? That do you try to find problems and take them head on before they find you? And so as you go through with this in your life, in your business, one of the things that you can look at is, I just say this as some of the things that we look at within our business, all right? If we look at it within just talk about the operations of the gyms, okay? So there's a lot of different holes you can look at, but these principles, when you look at it operating your business, it ties back to a lot of the same stuff. First is looking at your leads, all right? That if you don't have people that are interested in your program, whatever that is, if they're not coming in, and what's going on? What's causing low leads? Is it your marketing? Is it your strategy? Is it the sales pages? Is it what is causing those problems? All right. What about low conversions? All right. You're getting the leads, but then you have a low amount of people that are actually coming through the door or actually trying the program? Well, again, there's a lot of different things. What does that come back to as far as what's your follow-up process? What's the nurturing process? What about high staff turnover? Do you have a lot of people that are constantly coming and going through your team? If that's an issue, that's something else to look at. A lot of that could be the culture, some of your operations, but it always is that's going to come back to the leader. You're a unmotivated team. Do you feel like you're constantly trying to push people to do things instead of them jumping up and taking initiative to get stuff done? Again, that's going to look at the leadership. It starts with the leader, right? Being able to look at the results that you're delivering to your clients. Are you delivering them results that's helping them change their life? Or are you not? And at what point do you need to tweak some of those operations there? And on the other side of this is even just looking at your cancellations. Is looking at, all right, if you have a high amount of cancellation, people that are coming through the door, buying the product, but then canceling afterwards, what's causing that? How can you attrit that? How can you do something that's going to help minimize that? Well, and I'll tell you one of the things that we did, just to give you an example, that we had seen within our locations, is that, especially for it was focused a lot on getting people in that are wanting to lose weight, change their life, and, just maybe they're not comfortable with going into a big box gym, or, they're wanting a trainer, but can't necessarily, the cost of having a one-on-one trainer was too much. And so what we found, though, is that our clients would come in, we would help them make these amazing transformations, losing 20, 30, 40, 50. We've had multiple people lose over 100 pounds. And then they would feel like that they had outgrown what we were doing at FitBody. And so we saw this as, all right, what are we going to do about this? All right, we're getting cancellations because people feel like that it's time, that they need something that's going to stretch them and push them more. And so this was the whole mindset of where we started our what's called the FitBody Games. Where in 2018 was the first time we ever did this. And really it was changing the whole dynamic of this, that now it's not just focusing on losing weight, but all right, how do you take your fitness level and then start competing athletically? That you keep pushing yourself and making this with rewards and recognitions. And we took this one step further, and we did something of what we created was this, what we called our wall of transformation. It was basically a recognition for our clients and giving them things that they could now work towards and achieving, such as like hitting a certain amount of push-ups, pull-ups, being able to bench press or squat or deadlift a certain amount, or running a mile in a certain amount of time. And we built out this whole structure. So, all right, it's no longer just about weight loss, but what are these other areas that you can do to help build your results? And so I give you that as an example that of something we did in our business, but what can you do in yours that if you see some of these issues of being able to dive in, and again, you're taking out an aggressive battle stance. And while I'll leave you with this final thought on this subject, because this is something that as coaching to our team, try to get them to think about it. Are they waiting for us to come around and dig in and see, hey, why is this off? Why are your leads low? Why are your conversions low? Is it like, so they're sitting there and saying, well, I don't know. Or is it that when we go and as a coaching session with them and being able to help them, are they saying, hey, my leads are low. I think it's probably going from this, this, and this. What are the ideas on how we can make this better? And again, it's having that approach. Don't wait for problems to find you. You be the one to find the problems and then seek out how to find the solutions. Okay. All right. Next subject. All right. And this is something as a mindset that, this was, it came from basic training, but it really got, used here during this whole period of COVID. And it was something, and my drill sergeant said, so number 9 here is, it's better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6. And so what this means is that it's better to be alive and getting tried by 12 people, justifying your actions, than to be dead and being carried in a box by 6 people. And it was this mindset that in a combat situation, that sometimes things are not always black and white, and maybe there's things that are done that are questionable. But you know what? First, are we going to have as a team each other's backs and making sure that no matter what happens that we're good? and that we're covered. And if for whatever reason, if something happens that maybe was questionable or maybe was out of line and we're having to, God forbid, having to get tried for something, it's better to be alive than dead. And so I think this really came back to something with, especially during this time of COVID. And, especially being in the fitness industry, we were considered an especially evil COVID spreading business. And, it was a super challenging time. I remember when the initial lockdowns happened in, around March 15th of 2020. And just thinking, okay, we reacted, we shut down the locations, we immediately went into doing online workouts for our business. And within a couple months, we operated like that. And then, at least in the state of Arizona, the governor came out and said, all right, everyone can start reopening. But within a month of that time, the government made the decision that if you were a gym, a restaurant, a movie theater and a water park, that you had to be shut down again by 8 p.m. that night. And I just remember thinking, we are dead as a business. We will go under if we do this. We'd already taken about a 40% hit from this. We were barely hanging on by a thread. And if, we shut down, we're not recovering. I am closing the doors. We're going out of business. And that's where this saying came in. And I think it's one of these things that I remember talking to our attorneys, and they just said that, by the time the courts are shut down right now, so right now there's a huge backlog, and it'll probably be a year and a half by the time this actually goes to court. And so, hey, give it a shot. Here's an angle. Here's a way that you can look at it. You guys are not technically a gym, which is true. We're doing personal training and nutrition coaching. And so that was the angle we went with. And I just had the mindset, let's see what happens. And so we stayed open. And during this time, discovered, first, there was a big part of it was, of being able to stay in business. But the other thing is that our business was having an impact of a lot of our clients. Remember when this announcement went out, we had clients that were saying, literally, they had been suicidal, that what we were doing was the one thing that was keeping them going. This was the one positive part of their day and begging us not to close down. And we looked at it as the majority of our clients, would support this. We knew we were going to lose some people by this decision, but, had to make a decision that this is the direction we're going. We stayed open. And part of the reason why I'm even here right now from you is because that one thing is what helped us keep going. And, it wasn't easy. We had people that were reporting us to the Department of Health, had Department of Health inspectors coming out threatening to shut us down, and learned a whole lot of things about this whole process. But the one thing is that then, once COVID was officially deemed over, it all went away and it disappeared. And so I'm telling you that because, had I just, followed along, you wouldn't be here listening to this right now. Our locations would have gone under. And sometimes in life, you have to do that thing in your life that sometimes is that hard, scary decision. And just remember this, that it's better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6. Okay? And so I think the last lesson here that I want to give you, just really leading in your life and dominating like a soldier, right, is lesson number 10, point number 10, I should say, is what if I die? Okay? That I remember this is something when I was in basic training that our drill sergeant said. They said, privates, look to your left and right. That's right now, basically it was something to the context that right now it's a guarantee that almost every single one of you will be getting deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan. And this was in, about August of 2005. And that there's also a 100% chance that some of you are coming home in a wood box. And so this is the point where you better take this training seriously. This isn't just training. This is literally your life depends on it, but even more so your battle buddies. If you do something stupid, if you screw up, you could get someone else killed. And that really stuck with me. And I remember going through this and just remembering that, I may not be coming home from this. And this was really kind of the big thing that has shaped a lot of what has given me my mission in life. But, I just remember, you look at a lot of the different stuff. There's, a lot of different religions out there, especially with where we're going in the Middle East, that the primary religion was Islam. And, you have all these religions that say that their way is the only way. And it made me wonder, what is truth? What is the truth? And I think that there were a couple books. It was actually something that my dad gave me that helped me just understand this. And it was called The Case for a Creator and The Case for Christ. And it was actually written by, his name is Lee Strobel. And Lee Strobel was a devout atheist that basically had set out to show that, religion, Christianity was all a myth. And anyways, those books were a huge part of it, but there was one other thing that really came up that made me think about this. And it was something called Pascal's Wager. And Pascal was a German physicist or mathematician, I think it was like back in the 1600s. And that he had gone through this process had become a Christian himself and looked at some of these things from a mathematical point of view. Now, everything here, just understand what I'm saying. This is my journey, and I think to give you the lesson of really where to go with this. So you have to find this on your own. You need to be able to make your own decisions on this, but I believe this is the most important decision you can make, is that, really that you have to, there's a couple different ways you could wager. You could either wager that God exists, and if God exists, there's infinite gain. Believe me, our time on this earth is so finite. And if you wager that God exists, and God does exist, and when you die, then it's infinite gain, right? Now, if you wager that God exists and God does not exist, and at the end of life we all just disappear into the universe and become cosmic energy, then what did you really lose? You lived a better life. You were intentional about helping and serving people, because a lot of these principles that I also give you, it is something that is going to have a positive impact in life, right? Now, what about some of these other things here? If you wager against God, and God exists, it's infinite loss, right? It's making this decision that if you believe that there is not a God, if there is, and at the end of your life that you're wrong, that's a huge loss, right? And if you wager against God and God doesn't exist and you live your life of however way you want, just whatever, that morality is not a thing and just do what you want because you only have one life and you might as well enjoy it. It's only a finite game, because this is the one guarantee we all have in life, that at some point we're all going to die, all right? And I think this is a question that motivates me to really think about this, is that at the end of your life, what will be your legacy? There's actually something as a final interview question that when we look at bringing people onto our team, I like to ask, is at the end of your life, what will be your legacy? And with all these lessons and everything that we're putting here, the things that you're chasing after. Is it money? Is it a nice car? Is it a house? Is it flashy clothes or vacations and all that stuff? Sure, that's great. But the thing is, that's not what's going to bring you fulfillment. And I will tell you, just from being able to work hard, my wife, she's also a senior level executive. She's a rock star at her company and the top 1% of a Fortune 100 company. And she has done very, very good in her own rights. And you know what? We've been able to do some awesome things. Some of the stuff I've been able to buy for me. One of my investment strategies has been in real estate and buying up rental properties and, being able to have homes on the lake that we've turned into Airbnbs and made this as something that has been a profitable thing for us. That we've got several properties that, our cash flow on that is something that now, if we needed to, we could probably stop working. And, which is cool. But you know what? That doesn't bring fulfillment. There was also, some of the different things that I remember my wife, it was a few years ago, that were able to go and write a check for a new Tesla. You know what? That was something that was cool. But at the end of the day, it's a car. It's not what brings fulfillment. Because all these things, if they were gone, that it does not matter. Like at the end of your life, it's not going to be the things you have. It's going to be the experiences that you had. And I think even more importantly, it's going to be the lives that you impacted. And so I think as I give you all these leadership lessons, one of the biggest things that hopefully I hope that you're seeing, that you're taking away from this, is it comes back to one of the things I talked about as a core tenet in the first episode of Be a Servant Leader, is that if you want to live your life with fulfillment, with purpose, with being able to make an impact, how are you leading others? And more importantly, how are you serving them? How are you leaving an impact in their life? And I'm going to give you one last final story here, because this was something that was very impactful. And, it actually has to do with two people that were close to me that have died. And the first one was actually my uncle. I think this was probably about 7 years ago at this point. And that he had lived a life in a lot of ways that it was very sad. Without getting into a lot of the family details, just say that there was a lot of dysfunction in the situation, but that he had lived with my grandma from basically his entire life, and that he never moved out. He was morbidly obese, over 500 pounds, had a part-time job as a bouncer at a bar, and would drink and smoke, and that was his life. That was the highlight of his life. Was smoking a couple packs of cigarettes a day, and would drown his sorrows in alcohol, and just had no purpose. And when my grandma passed away, I think she was in her 80s, and he was in his 50s at this point. And this was the first time in his life that he had to go out on his own, and ended up going on government assistance and disability because he couldn't support himself, and he got put into some small Section 8 housing. And we got a call after I think it was about a year of this that he killed himself. He put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. And I remember going down to this bar that he used to work at, and that they had just raised a toast, that the guys that knew him, nobody had anything impactful to say, that otherwise Billy was a great dude and let's raise a beer to him. And that was it. And that was his life's legacy. And on the other side of that, it was something that actually happened about 6 months ago. As I talk about leaders, we had an amazing leader on our team. Her name is Brenna. And that she had actually come in, she had very much the process what I talked about, that she had came in, she was a client, she had made an amazing transformation, had become an intern, came in as a part-time coach, and worked her way up as leading our Queen Creek location, and then becoming a leader of leaders and moving into a district manager role, and had become that leader to so many people on our team, that was the leader that was like, man, that was the person that inspired me to be better, that challenged me to be better, that left that impact. And it was actually through a Fit Body Bootcamp service trip down to Costa Rica, and that we had sent her and one of our other staff members and client had gone down there along with the rest of, I think there was a group of 30 people or so that went down there. And I remember getting this call from a buddy of mine, Barrett, who's also a Fit Body owner, and just right after it happened, that they had jumped off this waterfall where they've taken hundreds of people to go, and that she jumped off, she got sucked under this current, and they didn't see her again. That was it. And they found her body a couple days later. And it was a tragic situation. It is still, in some ways, difficult even to talk about, just because of the fact that, the impact that she had left on not just our staff, but also our clients. That she left behind two small daughters, that our girls are 7 and 9 years old. And I remember going to her funeral or celebration of life, and just seeing that there was probably well over 500 people there. That of seeing the people that came up to talk about the impact that she had as a leader in their lives. And, just the legacy that she left. And you know what? And this is just the thing, and this is really the final thing that I want you to leave with. Are you living a life for yourself? that when that day comes, as it will for all of us, that somebody will simply just raise a beard to your name and that's it? Or are you going to be packing out auditoriums with people getting on stage talking about the impact that you had on their life? That you were that person that changed their life. And for me, and I feel like that this is my personal mission, is that one day when I stand before God, that I did everything that I did or that I could to make an impact on the people in this world, that my time was spent on this earth well, and it was done with something that I did not have questions that could I have done more? Could I have had a bigger impact? And so I leave you this just really as that final thing, as military leadership lessons of how you can dominate life. And I think number 10 is the most important. You have to understand your mission in life. For me, it's literally change lives every day. This was the piece of paper. I had that written down on a piece of paper hanging on my mirror when Fit Body started. And when I was working 100 hours a week, my alarm went off at 4 a.m. and I was coming home and going to bed at 10, 11 o'clock at night and doing that for the first several months to get this up and going. That's what kept me going. It was when I was tired, when I was exhausted, discouraged, change lives every day. This is the same mindset. What is your personal philosophy? What is your mission in life? And if you want to lead and dominate and live that life of passion, purpose, fulfillment, then follow through. And I hope that you will be the one packing an auditorium when that day comes at your funeral. All right, friends, that's all we got for today. Execute on those lessons, and we'll talk to you soon.